So, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of ClueCon Weekly. Joining us this week is our friend of the open source community and the conference community, Alan Quayle. Thank you for joining us today, Alan.
Thank you so much, Luca. I'm happy to finally be here after so many years of invitations. It was a little embarrassing on my behalf.
Oh, it's been a while, but we've met each other so many times that it was. I mean, we had to do it. It was just time to do it. Well, for the four people who probably haven't heard of you yet are in the audience, would you like to start with a quick intro about yourself?
Yep, sure, absolutely. So the name, Alan Quayle. I've been in telecoms communications for 3 odd decades, hence all the white hair. It has a bad long-term effect. So Luca, you can see he's still got a proper head of hair. It hasn't turned white yet. It will very soon. But
It's starting.
yeah. Oh, you can hardly notice it. It's like this, where the only bits of color, But anyway, I started my career off actually on the telecom side, working for a telco, BT, in the UK, at their research labs over in Martlesham Heath, and worked on a whole range of things, from devices, building up to electronic integrated circuits, working on video compression, to stuff that actually, I have in my home. So, for example, fiber to the home, I worked on those standards, and that finally, about 10 years ago, deployed to my home. So, I have fiber, and I've never needed to change my broadband provider since. I then went off and got some experience on the vendor side. So I worked for Lucent, that became Alcatel-Lucent, and there I was doing a lot of work on 3G. So that was trying to persuade telcos that this video telephony stuff would take off on mobile. I won't go any further than just say we tried. I then founded a company, and that was called Teltia, and that was in the mobile present space. So we exposed an API to developers all the way back in sort of 2001, 2002. So you knew whether your mobile phone was on or not. Now, these are back in the days when people would turn off their mobile phone. And even back then, people would get voice messages, but it's a pain. You've got to call it. So what we do is we just log all the numbers that called you while your mobile was off, not connected to the network. And you'd be surprised how often your mobile wasn't connected to the network in those days. And then once you reconnected, we'd send a message with all the people that called you while your mobile phone was off. So that got us to basically deployments. We ended up being sold to Cisco. After that, I thought, well, I'll take a break. This telecom API stuff, this programmable communications, seems to have a lot more opportunity than just presence. And I was working independently, helping a whole range of different companies in telecom APIs. I ended up founding a couple of events, TADSummit, and that is Telecom Application Developer Summit. And it's the only event that's out there that clearly states no BS, because there's a lot of BS out there. So we've really sort of, since 2013, been running events all around the world, helping people understand the reality, the challenges, the opportunities around programmable communications, which are still vibrant today, as we see with Signal Wire's, AI Gateway as a great example of all the innovations that are taking place. The year after, in 2014, we founded an event called TADHack. So Telecom Application Developer Hackathon. And we've been running events all around the world, helping lots of people. You could be a telecoms engineer, you could be just students, with an interest in programming, could be a web or enterprise developer, and helping them all understand how to use programmable communications. So not just voice messaging, but all the other cool stuff that you can do around that. And that's still running today. We had an event just before Enterprise Connect in March, and Signal Wire were one of the sponsors. So you were able to get your gateway out there, get developers on there. And it's really great to see just the hacks that were created, the excitement around the platform you've created and how easy it is for developers to use. And we have an event coming up in October on the 19th and 20th. That's TADHack Global. That has locations all around the world. So we've just launched the site. It's a beta. There's a lot of work to do, but over the summer we'll get that all up and running, and hopefully get a great group of people together to hack and solve problems around issues that matter to them. Because one of the things that's very different with TADHack, I mean, you've got, of course, the big brand events, the Microsoft, the Amazon. They're big. You should be grateful for hacking on our platform. Well, we know there's a lot of competition out there, so we've always had cash prizes, so that people can get cash recognition. That because you spend a weekend away from the family, and it's nice that hey, you can come back with some cash rather than say a Millennium Falcon drone, which doesn't really do much for your partner. While if you've got some cash, you can have a family meal. You can maybe even for a holiday, because some of the prices have been quite big. So that's part of what we try to do, and we continue to bang the drum on the importance of developers and being open and honest in the industry, because people are trying to build businesses, they're trying to solve problems, and telecoms is still a bit of a mess. I mean, just look at all the spam SMS, the robocalling, and all the scams that are taking place over that. People's lives are being severely affected. So again, what we do is we show where the problems are coming from and what the industry needs to do. So I sort of refer to us as the conscience of our industry.
It's very, very nice. Very nicely put it. Yeah, especially open source components and the developer-oriented APIs really truly are the conscience of this industry when it comes to keeping standards honest, keeping everybody on standards, because otherwise everybody comes up with
the whole programmable communications industry, that started 20 odd years ago, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for open source. Simple as that.
Yeah, there was not, and the known open source players realized the importance of it after the fact. Like after a while, they realized, hey, I can do some cool stuff. Why can't my platform do it? And to a degree, many of those platforms still can't. Like if you need something specific, you still have to. Well, that leads into a good question for you. You've been in the industry for a long time. You've been an observer and you've been a researcher, and you know much more about the industry than probably most other people that we had on the show. What do you think? What do you say happened in the last 10 years? Well, what are the main changes you've seen happen? And what's next?
Yeah, great questions. So the big change is the democratization of telecoms. Because once upon a time, you had to get your soft switch or switch from a big telecoms-related vendor. It was expensive, it was inflexible, it was a big company game. And then, it really was as the likes of, Twilio, Nexmo, all these programmable communication companies exposed very simple APIs, not standard APIs that the telecom industry keeps getting overly excited about, just easy to use and with lots of sample code, lots of just, easy to understand documentation. You do a search, I need to send an SMS from this app, and and it needs to be in Python, and you could download it, change basically your keys, and really cut and paste programming. And it was adoption of, now this is ancient history now, but it was just telecoms adopting Web 2 principles. That's all it was. And many players in the programmable comms space did that and achieved immense success. I mean, I'll just point out that during the pandemic, Twilio had the same enterprise value as some of the big telcos. I mean, that's amazing when you consider its thin role within the industry. So that's been written large now. It's maturing. So we're now in a very interesting phase, because the carriers, the telcos are looking on and going, well, wait a minute, Twilio got that valuation? Well, I want some of that valuation. So we've seen the carriers raising prices
Mhm.
for SMS. Once upon a time, it was like a fractions of a penny. Now it's half a penny to a penny. And we've seen, globally, carriers looking, okay, so there's this company here and they're offering APIs and they're reselling our messaging APIs. And who's their biggest client? Oh, it's Facebook. Oh, it's Google. Well, I'll just go and sell straight to them. And basically, I'll just offer them a slight discount compared to what they're paying to that provider. So they've been able to gobble up some of the big accounts. So we've seen that shift over the last few years, particularly through the pandemic, because that really did drive home the importance of using PSTN services so people can, order food or get notifications when they arrive at a particular location. All these processes really got automated through PSTN services. So telcos have sort of grabbed a share of that. And now, again, telcos have their strengths, don't get me wrong, but they're looking at, well, we can now, take more of these APIs and we'll standardize them, because standardization is the best thing, because that's what makes telecoms successful. And it is, don't get me wrong, the air interface for a mobile network has to be standardized, full stop. Otherwise, you're not going to get all those mobile phones working. You can't have fragmentation there. But it's not about standardization when you're working with developers. It's about easy. You make it as easy as possible, because that developer's got a whole host of tasks they're doing. They need that little telecom piece that's maybe a fraction of their project, maybe 4%, 2% of their project. They just need this SMS alert to work. It has to be easy, that they can just cut, paste, and run with it. So easy dominates. So we're seeing telcos have another go. And of course, they believe that quality of service is going to be very important, because they'll be making all these big 5G investments. But challenge there is, I always point out, fixed broadband is 10 years ahead of mobile broadband. So fixed, they were the first to do video streaming. They were the first to do video telephony. They were the first to do basically text communications. They were the first to offer internet access. Mobile caught up 10 years later. And when you look at, for consumer, I'm talking only about consumer here, are there any consumer services that are using quality of service? The answer is no. So fixed shows why the current focus of the mobile industry is just going to repeat what happened 10 years ago with one API. Now, I've pointed this out, I've explained it, but the industry, I always find, the telecom side of the industry, it's like there's a these are our known truths. When you keep pointing out these known truths aren't really truths, it's like you can see people just cover their ears and go, no, I'm not listening. So we're in a very interesting time. I think that when I look at what SignalWire has done with its AI gatekeeper, when I look at what Strolid is doing with VCons, programmable communications is getting more powerful, more sophisticated. It's getting more embedded across many different ecosystems. For example, we had a great discussion around Industry 4.0 and the importance of what SignalWire, Strolid are doing in enabling customer feedback to be brought back directly into the production line. Because if we look at, say, Tesla, their core platform is all about gathering customer feedback and using that to drive production today. So again, that's that is programmable communication. So I see what we're doing. It's very powerful. I see it. Lots of aspects of it are driving forward into many different industries. So it's a great time to be in programmable communications. There are struggles, unfortunately, as telcos try to reposition, try to take more share of the revenue. But I'd say the truth is, you've got to focus on your customers and solving the problems that matter to them. And that, for me, is why the AI gatekeeper, why VCons, and their integration into the solutions for their customers is just a great example of how the programmable communications will continue to evolve, innovate, and make industries better.
Yeah, I think that's a very good. I mean, the democratization needs to continue, and
Yes.
I agree with you that that's how it happens. One direct question for you, too. We managed to avoid the topic so far.
Yeah.
How do you see AI adoption in the industry?
Yeah. Well, again, there's a lot of bullshit. So,
Oh, good. Oh, finally, someone says it. Thank you, Alan.
But again, I come back to the resources that exist for the SignalWire AI Gateway. And there's some great web pages in there where it goes through all the issues you're going to face and recommendations of what you need to do with your prompting. So we're going through a learning phase. There are clear applications, and it varies from industry to industry. They're not, when we're talking about customer service, hallucinations aren't going away. You can minimize them, but stuff's going to happen. And I think part of the challenge the industry or enterprises that are using these tools is to realize, it's like people. They're going to make mistakes. And we need to, if the customer gets an offer for a $1 round the world ticket, it's like, come on, that's nonsensical. That was a mistake. So, we're not going to honor that. But here's, a voucher for a couple of $100 to say sorry for that misinformation. So I think we're going to go through that sort of shift. I think privacy is a big issue. And again, I'll just point to VCons and the work of Strollard in enabling the training data to be able to understand how this model, where it's been trained, on what data. Because I, as an individual, have every right to say, I don't want my data being used in the training. Because with the right prompting, that data can be, thrown out at end users. So I think a lot of bullshit. There are applications. We're building the tools to make it easy to adopt. I think this, from a legal standpoint, we're going to go through, a few trials and tribulations, but just like using people, using these tools will become more normal. And it's going to be used in lots and lots of ways, but it's not next year. It is for particular applications. It's a decade of transition that's going to happen where these tools will augment what we're already doing. Are we going to see mass unemployment? No. Come on. It's a great example is, oh God, I can't remember the name of it now. But all those tools where you need to create because I do a lot of publishing, so I need to create an image because it's visual. When people basically read a title, if you've got an image there, they're like twice as likely to click on it. So you want engaging, nice graphics. And I can't afford to use basically graphics designers all the time in creating custom images, but I can quite happily pay basically a couple of bucks to get a nice image that will attract people to click on. So it's one of those where it's extending people's reach in terms of the resources they've got available. I look with some of the companies I work with on the code they're able to create. Again, it's great. It works. They still need to do a little bit around the edges, but it extends the reach of your engineering group in being able to do more with the time that they've got available. So it's a small incremental improvement. It's massively overhyped. Some of the application areas are complete nonsensical, but that's part of the exploration. We don't know. So do it and see how it works.
I think you touched on something very precisely. I feel like AI is a multiplicator of skill. Like if you know what you're doing with AI, you can do more of it.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're doing, the risk of getting an hallucination or something that's not correct is too high.
Exactly.
There's a word of difference. I'll be honest, occasionally use GPT for programming questions in languages I'm not really an expert in. Like I'm not a Python expert yet. So sometimes I don't know how to do something. But if you explain it very precisely, or even an example in another language, you
Yes,
get the right code. If you just
exactly.
say, I need something, we'll do this, 90% of the time the code will not work.
Correct.
So you have to know
Exactly.
what you're actually doing. It is very. Plus, the other thing is, which you touch on, and I think I agree, because Signal Wire's AI was geared toward that. It's better to pick a smaller application, a type of application. We try to work precisely on replacing IVRs with
Yeah.
something more, human, more
Yes.
human-like, more easier to use. AI is very good at figuring out what you want to do,
Yep.
what you're trying to achieve between the various steps it has, and then the
Yep.
actual steps are executed by normal systems. So you don't have the AI going into that database or whatever. It's telling
Exactly.
you, okay, this person wants to do this. That's what's worked for us, and that is a. But
Exactly.
yeah, no
And
job,
that's
no mass jobs.
no, and that's a very good point, because when I look at like Strollard, they do basically sales for car dealerships, and all their use is about augmenting the salespeople to be more successful, to drive more sales. Salespeople aren't getting basically fired. It's when you've got people there and you can help them do their job better, because you can correlate. Because the great thing with an LLM that you use in your company, all the conversations are feeding in. So it may be a conversation that you've not, you're unaware of, or several conversations that are taking place, maybe in another state. But the insight from that conversation could be directly relevant to the sale you're discussing at this moment. So it gives you a view across your organization and every conversation that that's taking place.
Absolutely, it is a. I think still it's going to be there. It's just not going to be as impactful as we think for a long time. Then
Exactly. It's a
maybe
decade.
some.
Yeah. But then it'll just be there, and it'll be safe, it'll be secure, it'll be, with privacy protections built in, so you have compliance. I mean, and there's going to be a whole host of lawsuits. I mean, RJ Berner made a very good point. In the people that are going to make out on AI initially are going to be the lawyers.
Hmm. Why so?
Well, because people aren't protecting their customer data. So they're
Hmm.
training up models using the customer data, not necessarily with permissions. And
Oh, that
you
way. I was thinking lawyer using AI.
no, 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 no. Lawyers basically, like TCPA, where you basically are calling customers and it's like, well, you don't have permission to do that. Well, here's a fine, and they make a ton of money out of that. So absolutely, I think that that's where we're going to see the same thing happening, and that's why it's so important to have traceability on all the conversations that you're using, and anonymization, so you can remove customer identifiable information. And it's not just names and credit card numbers or telephones. I mean, it can be like, well, my favorite color is red. Okay,
Hmm.
now basically, if you ask, as a challenge, your favorite color, you put in red. So that is customer identifiable data as well. So it's a lot more subtle than just the basic stuff, because we're listening to all the conversations, and all those conversations can be correlated, and then can provide stuff that could basically enable accounts to be hacked.
Yeah, it is. That portion is really still growing. I think the whole
Exactly.
ethics discussion around AI is still a work in progress, and that's where open source will again be important, because that's
Correct.
the so far in any industry, the software industry, accountability came from open source. Like
Yes.
cryptography truly took off when you could use PGP and GPG first,
Oh yeah,
first, and then
absolutely. Yeah.
there's going to be a lot.
Well,
Well,
ChatGPT, and let's face it, they showed, it's like, they asked, I can't remember the name of the actress, can we use your voice? And she said no. And they tried again, and she said no. And they went, oh, sod it, we're going to use your voice anyway. That shows
mhm.
the type of company, the type of people they are. And you can go, well, ChatGPT is the answer. And it's like, well, no, open source is the answer, because open source is accountable. Because if you do stuff like that as an open source project, you're dead in the water. Full stop. The community moves away because you've done something that basically breaks social norms. Well, ChatGPT, hey, look at the billions we've got flowing. Give us some more billions. They're immune to basically such social norms.
So, what can people expect at TADHack Global in October?
Yep. So we're gathering sponsors. Of course, we have lots more room for more sponsors. At the moment, we've got Strollard will be there. So they'll be focusing on VCon, which is a great skill. So, for example, one of, Suraj, he was one of the hackers. He got a summer intern project. So he's a student down in Florida. And because of the skills he built up on using VCon, he was able to get a summer intern project enabling VCons for the open source project Jambones. And that's just beautiful. You've got basically, TADHack helping some of the developers not only win prize money for the hacks, but also get summer jobs that give them amazing, relevant experience. So we're hoping to do a lot more of that. We've got a new sponsor on board, TSG Global. They're a CPaaS, so they've been doing a lot of work in the CPaaS space, but they've got some very interesting tech around identity and privacy protection. So again, they want to show the tools and just throw it out there and let developers play. Because that's TADHack Global. We've got hacks all around the world. So South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and everybody's in a different situation, a different environment. And what we ask people to do is, well, here are the technologies. Use these to solve problems that matter to you in your home, work, or community life. And from that, you get to see the diversity of problems people face and some really innovative solutions that help people launch companies, that help people get great positions in companies, and also bring people together to. So, for example, in Sri Lanka, we had a great hack. It was about monitoring stream river flow. Stream flow, because in farms you've got lots of sort of streams you're having to bring around to irrigation. That's the word I was looking for. So you could monitor the irrigation and react to changes in that. And that drastically improved the efficiency of water. And a team got together, created the solution, deployed the solution, and became a real business. Because the key is it's priced appropriately. They're taking tech, they're building it locally. The people costs are local people costs. So it enables you to deliver a solution that works in Sri Lanka. We've had the same model in Colombia and same model in, for example, Nigeria, where they build a solution. For Nigeria, it was air quality monitoring. Again, very simple hack that enabled from a community level people to monitor the air quality in or around their homes. So it's empowering democratization and enabling people locally to produce solutions that work in their country.
It is super duper interesting. Yeah. As an aside, I think Africa in particular is going to be a very big market in the future. And
absolutely.
There's a lot of talented people. There's a lot of talented people growing up using open source tools, learning how to use them, and it's the next India. Like I've seen, it's the same story. India started out from people learning open source tools because they were free. Once you had an internet connection, you could do whatever. And now I see the same thing happening with some areas in Africa. So that's going to be very, very interesting. And,
absolutely.
And it's great to have that happen. Well, Alan, I mean, thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for TADHack. Thank you for all the TADSummits I've been to and the fun I've had there. And looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on ClueCon Weekly.
Do you have anything else on the calendar other than a TADHack in October yet? Or
we've got TADSummit, and so TADHack will be on the Saturday, Sunday. So that's the 19th, 20th. And then on the 22nd, 23rd, we're going to have a TADSummit in New York City. So we haven't got the location sorted out at the moment. Again, we're building up sponsors. We're putting a great agenda together. And I really wanted to make sure that we had the TADSummit after the TADHack so we could review all the great innovations created. And for this year, for TADSummit, we're going to be a little bit more controversial. We've been stirring things up. We're the conscience for the industry. I think we're entering a very interesting time where there's a lot of pressure that's being applied to programmable communications from the outside. And I think, there's an important role for somebody that can speak the truth, that can basically, be the conscience for the overall industry to help everyone succeed. Because what we're talking about, programmable telecoms is just enabling people and things to work together more efficiently, using the best tools that are out there. We've discussed AI, we've discussed VCOM, and it's just enabling that to be delivered in a way that's cost effective for all around the world. So, my view is programmable, communications is here to stay for, the rest of basically this century. And it's really just helping the innovators, get through this current bump in the industry where, shall we say, things are maybe a little tougher than they need to be because people are trying to sit on their monopolies, and those monopolies are not going to last.
Yeah, that's a good thing. The people have been, well, that's the other thing open source does. We force people to move, so the industry has to do something. Otherwise, you come for the lunch.
Yeah.
Well, again, Ellen, thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you, and it was a long time.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
And for the rest of the people, I'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.